I don't have much to give you, but I can promise you this. I will never leave you again.
The living room of the Weston estate was warm with lamplight and soft music. Laughter hummed in the background like a low fire. Emily Weston stood in front of him, eyes glassy, breath held. Beside her, little Maya clung to Elijah's sleeve, her small fingers tightening as if afraid he might disappear. In his hand, Elijah wasn't holding a ring. He was holding a tiny, colorful bracelet made of cheap plastic beads, the kind a child makes at a kitchen table with too much concentration and a tongue sticking out at the corner of their mouth. He looked up at Emily. "I know this isn't how it's supposed to look," he whispered, "but this is what my life really is. Me, my daughter, and everything we are. I'm asking if you'll be part of it." Emily's lips parted, a single tear slipping free. To understand how a rainy night, a broken bracelet, and a little girl's handmade gift turned three strangers into a family, we have to go back to the night Elijah Carter stopped his car in the storm. The rain was coming down sideways that night in Seattle. Streetlights blurred into streaks of amber. Water streamed across the windshield like someone constantly drawing new lines, erasing the old. Elijah's wipers squeaked in a tired rhythm as his old sedan climbed the hill. He checked the clock on the dashboard, almost midnight. His back still ached from the double shift at Harbor Diner. He could still smell grease and coffee on his uniform, feel the weight of the tray he'd carried for hours. In the quiet of the car, exhaustion pressed on his ribs. But the thought of home softened it. He pictured Maya asleep on their old pull-out couch, hair in a fuzzy halo, one arm thrown across her stuffed rabbit. He imagined the drawing she'd promised to finish for him. "You and me and our future house, Daddy, with a big yard and a real mailbox and everything." He smiled at the memory and turned onto the narrow road that cut across the hillside. That's when he saw her, an old woman, standing on the curb in the rain. No umbrella, no coat, just a thin cardigan soaked through, clinging to her frail shoulders. Her gray hair was plastered to her temples. She turned her head blindly toward the headlights, squinting, like she wasn't sure where she was. Elijah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Don't stop," a tired voice inside him murmured. "You're already late. Maya's waiting. You can't afford trouble." But then another voice, softer and heavier. "What if that were your daughter, lost in the dark, and everyone drove past?" His foot moved to this brake before he decided. The car rolled to a stop beside her. Elijah leaned over and opened the passenger window, letting the cold, wet air rush in. "Ma'am," he called, "are you okay?" She turned toward him slowly, blinking at his face like trying to place him in a memory. I don't know," she said finally, her voice trembling. "I was going home, but the street, it doesn't look like it used to." "Do you know your address?" Elijah asked gently. She frowned, thinking. "It's the big house on the hill, the one with the glass windows, and the old oak tree in front. My daughter lives there. Emily Weston." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled handkerchief, embroidered with a single letter, W. The rain was hitting harder now, drumming on the roof. Elijah glanced at the clock again. Midnights were never kind to single fathers with early shifts. But he unlocked the doors anyway. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you somewhere dry. We'll figure it out together." The old woman hesitated, then eased herself into the passenger seat. Water dripped from her sleeves onto the cracked leather. "Thank you," she murmured. "What's your name, young man?" "Elijah," he said, "but everyone calls me Eli." She smiled faintly. "You have kind eyes, Eli." As he pulled back onto the road, she watched the raindrops slide down the window, her lips moving as she counted streetlights like old friends. Weston Estate appeared out of the dark like something from another world. Tall iron gates, a long sweeping driveway, windows glowing soft and golden through the rain. The oak tree she had mentioned loomed over the front yard, its wet branches sagging like tired arms. Elijah parked in front of the wide stone steps. The front door opened before he could even touch the bell. A woman stood in the doorway. Early 30s, sharp jawline, hair pulled back in a simple twist. Her blouse looked like it had never known a wrinkle. A phone was pressed to her ear, but her eyes were only on the old woman in the passenger seat. "Mom," she breathed. Elijah hurried around the car and helped the older woman out. She smiled up at the younger. "Emily," she said softly, "I got a little lost." Emily Weston dropped the phone. It swung on the cord of her headphones, forgotten. She stepped into the rain, not caring as it soaked her silk blouse, and wrapped her arms around her mother. "You can't just walk out like that," she whispered into her hair. "You scared me to death." They stood there, clinging to each other in the rain. Then Emily's gaze lifted to Elijah. For a moment, her face hardened, cautious. A stranger. A strange car. Her mother, missing, found by a man she didn't know. "Did you bring her here?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Elijah said, suddenly aware of his cheap shoes, his damp uniform, his dark skin against the pale stone of the estate. "She seemed lost, so I followed her directions. This the right place?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. Her eyes softened just a fraction. "Thank you," she said. "Really, I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stopped." The old woman patted his hand lightly. "This is Elijah," she told her daughter. "He has kind eyes." Emily almost smiled. "Elijah," she repeated. "I'm Emily Weston. This is my mother, Margaret." He gave a small nod. "Well, I should head home," he said, stepping back. "My daughter's waiting. I just wanted to make sure she got somewhere safe." He turned toward his car. "Wait," Emily called. "At least let me—" But the words tangled in her throat. She wasn't used to owing anybody anything. Not like this. By the time she found them, the only thing left was the image. The man in the soaked diner uniform, climbing into his old car, the taillights fading into the rain. The next morning, Elijah was late. He knew it the moment he opened his eyes. The alarm had gone off. He'd meant to wake up on time. But somewhere between tucking Maya in, answering her questions about the lost grandma and the castle house, and staring at the ceiling thinking about bills, he'd simply slipped. Sunlight was already peeking through the blinds. "Daddy?" Maya mumbled from the couch, rubbing her eyes. "You're still here?" He jolted upright. "Shoot," he hissed under his breath. "I'm late." He kissed her forehead hurriedly. "I gotta run, baby. There's leftover mac and cheese in the fridge. Mrs. Lopez will check in on you in a bit, okay? You draw something for me while I'm gone." "Okay," she said sleepily. "I'm making you a bracelet today. A lucky one. So you don't get sad at work." He paused just long enough to smile at her. "I'd like that," he said, "more than you know." Then he ran. Harbor Diner was already half full when Elijah burst in, rain still clinging to his shoulders. The smell of coffee, bacon, and disinfectant hit him like it always did. Neon flickered in the window. The radio crackled with some old rock song. Customers hunched over plates, half awake. The manager, a thick-necked man with a perpetually red face named Rick, looked up from the register. "You're late, Carter," he barked. "I know, Rick. I'm sorry," Elijah panted. "It was just—" "Just nothing," Rick snapped, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "You think this place runs on your excuses?" Elijah swallowed hard. "I had to help someone last night," he said quietly. "An elderly woman. She was lost in the rain and—" Rick snorted. "What are you, a social worker now? You're a waiter. A waiter who can't even show up on time." A couple of people in booths looked up, watching. "I need this job," Elijah said, the words scraping out before he could stop them. His cheeks burned. "Please, I'll take double shifts. You think I don't know that?" Rick leaned in, breath sour. "That's why I kept you this long. But I can't have unreliable staff." He straightened, and with a cold flick of his wrist, he said the words like they were nothing. "You're done here. Pick up your last check at the end of the week." Something inside Elijah dropped. "That's it?" he whispered. "After everything? Because I tried to help someone?" Rick shrugged. "You want to play hero? Do it on your own time, not on mine." The bell over the door chimed. A gust of cold air swept in. Along with it, two figures. An older woman in a neat coat and a younger woman in a tailored trench, hair pinned back, eyes sharp. Margaret Weston and her daughter stepped into the diner just in time to hear Rick's last sentence. Margaret frowned. "What do you mean, play hero?" she asked, looking from Rick to Elijah. "This young man brought me home last night. He stayed out in that storm so I wouldn't be alone." Rick blinked, thrown. "Ma'am, this is a private conversation." "It didn't sound very private," Emily cut in. Her voice was cool, edged with steel. "We heard you clearly from the door." She turned to Elijah, her eyes searching his. "You got fired because you helped my mother?" she asked. Elijah's jaw tightened. Shame and anger twisted in his chest. "It's fine," he muttered. "I'll be okay." Rick folded his arms. He was late. That's all that matters in this place. Emily held his gaze a moment longer, then gave a short, bitter laugh. "Right," she said. "Of course. Can't let kindness get in the way of business." She looked back at Elijah. Something shifted in her expression. A thought forming. "Do you live far from here?" she asked. He hesitated. "Not too far, bus ride, why?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. "If you're not working here anymore," she said, "maybe you can come by this address later today. We owe you more than a thank you, and—" She looked at her mother, then back at him. "I might have a job for you." She slid the card into his hand. Weston Estate, address, cell number. Elijah stared at the card. At her. At Margaret, who watched him like she already approved. I'll think about it," he said. "No rush," Emily replied, "but don't wait too long." As they left, Margaret turned back and said softly, "You still have kind eyes, Elijah." He stood there in the middle of the diner, apron hanging loosely from his fingers, job gone, future uncertain. In his hand, a small white card that didn't belong in his world. He thought of Maya. He put the card in his pocket. The hallway of Elijah's apartment building smelled like dust and old takeout. He unlocked the door, shoulders heavy, and stepped inside. "Daddy!" Maya shouted, running at him like a small missile, arms wide. "You're home early!" He caught her easily and lifted her, burying his face in the crook of her neck. For a second, he just breathed. "Yeah," he murmured, "I am." "Did you see my drawing?" she asked, pointing proudly at the fridge, where a new sheet of paper was attached with a magnet. Crayon lines showed a big house, a smiling stick figure with a beard, a little girl with huge hair, and a son with a face. "That's us?" he asked. "And our future house," she said, "with windows and a tree and a mailbox. Did you like it?" "I love it," he said, "more than anything." He set her down, hesitating. "Hey, Maya," he began. "What would you think if Daddy had a different job, maybe somewhere a little bigger? Bigger than the diner?" Her eyes widened. "Like a castle? Like the house from last night?" He smiled weakly. "Maybe not exactly a castle, but the lady from last night, Ms. Emily, she gave me this." He pulled out the business card. "She said she might have a job for me at that big house." Maya gasped. "Daddy, you could work at a castle!" She bounced on her toes. "Do they have a big kitchen? Can I see it? Do they have a yard? Oh, I made you something!" She darted away toward the small table by the couch, cluttered with markers and beads. "I said I'd make you a lucky bracelet, remember?" she said, holding up a clumsy loop of plastic beads in every color. "For when you're sad at work. If you get a new job, you wear it, okay?" Elijah took it from her like it was made of glass. The beads were uneven. The string was a little too loose. But it was the most beautiful thing he'd held in a long time. "Okay," he said softly. "If I get the job, I'll wear it every day." Weston Estate looked different in the daylight. Less like a castle. More like a museum someone secretly lived in. White stone walls. Tall glass windows that reflected the gray sky. The oak tree out front, massive and steady. Elijah stood with Maya by the iron gate, suddenly very aware of the patched elbows on his jacket, the scuffs on her sneakers. "You sure about this?" he whispered. Maya nodded vigorously. "We have to see the inside, for research, for our future house." The intercom crackled. "Hello?" Emily's voice came through, crisp and clear. It's Elijah," he said into the speaker. "You, told me to stop by." There was a pause. Then the gate buzzed and slid open. Inside, the driveway seemed to go on forever. Maya's head turned left and right, eyes trying to drink in everything at once. "Daddy, look," she whispered. "They have 2 cars, too." "That they do," he said. The front door opened as they climbed the steps. Emily stood there, dressed down this time in a simple sweater and jeans. She looked softer without her office armor. "You came," she said, a hint of surprise in her tone. "Yeah," Elijah replied. "This is my daughter, Maya." Maya grinned. "Hi, Ms. Lady from the Rain." Emily blinked, then laughed quietly. "You can call me Emily," she said. "It's nice to officially meet you, Maya." She stepped aside. "Come in." The foyer was huge. Marble floor, high ceiling with a chandelier that looked like frozen raindrops. Maya's footsteps echoed as she walked. "This is something," Elijah murmured. "It's too big," Margaret's voice called from the living room. She appeared in her cardigan, smiling. Too quiet most days. Maya ran to her. Hi, Miss Margaret. Did you get lost today? Margaret chuckled. Not yet, dear, but the day's not over. Emily gestured toward the sitting room. Let's talk, she said to Elijah. He sat on the edge of a leather sofa that probably cost more than his car. Maya stood by the window with Margaret, counting raindrops on the glass. I need help, Emily started straightforward. With the house, with my mother. She wanders. She forgets things. I can't be here all the time. You want a nurse? Elijah asked. No, she said. We already have nurses on call. What I need is someone who can drive, run errands, keep an eye on her, a steady presence, someone she trusts. Margaret looked up. I trust him, she said cheerfully. He brought me home. Emily's lips curved. That part is obvious. She folded her hands. I know you lost your job because of us, she continued. I can't undo that. But I can offer you something better. Steady pay, regular hours, health insurance, a room here if you ever need it. Elijah's breath caught. That sounds more than generous, he said. But I'd have to bring Maya sometimes. I can't leave her alone all day while I'm all the way out here. Emily considered that. Her eyes flicked to the girl by the window, now making faces at her reflection. That's not a problem, she said finally. This place has too many rooms and not enough life in it anyway. Margaret clapped her hands softly. I like her, she said of Maya. She reminds me of you when you were little, Em. Emily's expression softened despite herself. So, she said, turning back to Elijah, will you take the job? He looked at Maya, at Margaret, at the house, at the life beyond the line he'd drawn around his world. He thought about every time someone had implied people like him didn't belong in houses like this. Every security guard who'd watched him in a store. Every customer who'd spoken slower, louder, as if kindness couldn't exist in his skin color. I'm not sure I fit in a place like this, he admitted. Emily met his gaze steadily. Neither do I, she said quietly. Maybe that's exactly why it might work. He exhaled. Okay, he said, I'll do it. Maya cheered. Margaret beamed. And somewhere in the house the air shifted, just a little. The days that followed rewrote the rhythm of Weston Estate. Mornings started with the sound of Maya's footsteps racing down the long hallway, chasing her own echo. The kitchen that had once only known the hum of expensive appliances now smelled like burnt toast and pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. Margaret was delighted. You're my little shadow, she told Maya one afternoon as they pieced together a jigsaw puzzle on the grand dining table. Did you know that? Maya grinned. I can be a rainbow shadow if you want. Look. She held up a handful of plastic beads from her backpack, letting them spill between her fingers. Emily, passing by with her laptop under her arm, stopped at the doorway. What are you two plotting now? She asked. World domination, Margaret replied serenely, starting with this puzzle. And this bracelet, Maya added. I'm going to make one for you too, Miss Emily. Do you like blue or green better? Emily hesitated. I don't usually wear much jewelry, she said. But blue, I suppose. Okay, Maya said happily. I'll make you the bluest bracelet in the whole world. Elijah watched from the kitchen island where he was flipping pancakes spelled M-A-Y-A, one letter at a time. He caught Emily's eye. You don't have to let her bother you, he said. She gets intense with crafts. Emily shook her head. She's not bothering me. Her gaze drifted to Margaret, whose laughter came easier these days. This house hasn't sounded like this in a long time, she murmured. Later, as Elijah helped Margaret to her favorite armchair, he noticed a small jewelry box on the side table. Inside, nestled in velvet, was a simple silver bracelet. He'd seen it before, on Emily's wrist. When she thought nobody was looking, her thumb would rub the small stone set in the middle like a worry bead. What's that one? Maya asked, peering over. Margaret smiled sadly. Her father gave it to her when she was about your age, she said. She thinks if she holds on to it tight enough, she keeps him close. She closed the box gently. She doesn't like anyone touching it, Margaret added. Some things in this house are off limits. That night, as Elijah tucked Maya into the makeshift bed in the guest room, he whispered, Hey, remember what I said about boundaries? She yawned. Like don't eat other people's snacks? Kind of, he said, amused. But also, some rooms, some things are a no-go, okay? Like what? Emily has a room upstairs, her office. If the door's closed, we stay out. And you don't touch her bracelet, okay? The silver one? Maya nodded seriously. Got it. No touching the shiny, sad bracelet. He kissed her forehead. That's my girl. But houses with many rooms have many doors. And children who feel safe will wander. It happened one rainy afternoon when the clouds made the whole estate feel like a dim, quiet ship drifting through fog. Elijah was in the garage checking the car. Margaret was napping in the sunroom. Emily was in a video call in her office, door firmly closed. Maya was supposed to be drawing. She had been for almost half an hour. Then she got bored. She followed the faint sound of Emily's voice down the hallway, her small feet quiet on the carpet. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop, she was just curious. About the room that always seemed to swallow Emily and spit her out more tired. The door was slightly ajar. Just enough. Maya pushed it gently. Inside, the office smelled like paper and faint perfume. Bookshelves lined the walls. A large desk faced the window, where rain traced lines on the glass. Oh. Emily sat with her back to the door, headphones on, talking about numbers that meant nothing to a 7-year-old. I understand the market volatility, she was saying, but we can't. Maya slipped inside silently, eyes wide. The room felt important, heavy, like a museum with invisible ropes. On a side table by the window, something caught her eye. The silver bracelet. It lay there, glinting softly in the gray light. Simple, beautiful, sad. Maya glanced at Emily, still talking. She stepped closer. She didn't mean to touch it, not really, but the bracelet looked lonely, lying there by itself, and children have a way of thinking they can fix lonely things. Her fingers brushed it. It was cool. She picked it up, just to see the way it caught the light. In that tiny, suspended moment, she could almost imagine putting it back exactly the way it was, no one ever knowing. Then her fingers slipped. The bracelet fell. The sound was small, a light metal clink as it hit the hardwood floor, but it might as well have been a crack of thunder. The delicate stone in the center struck the corner of the table, chipped, and broke loose. The bracelet itself bent awkwardly out of shape. Maya froze, heart punching her ribs. Behind her, Emily's voice stopped mid-sentence. Maya, she said. Maya turned around slowly. The bracelet hung lopsided in her small hand. I was just looking, she whispered. Emily stood up so quickly her chair bumped the desk. Her face went pale, not angry red, not hot with rage, just colorless. She stared at the broken bracelet, at the missing stone on the floor, at Maya's trembling fingers. For a long second, she didn't say anything at all. The silence was worse than yelling. I'm sorry, Maya blurted. I didn't mean... I just wanted to see it. I was going to put it back, I swear. Something in Emily's eyes cracked. She knelt slowly, her movements stiff. Put it on the table, she said, voice quiet, oddly flat. Maya obeyed. Elijah appeared in the doorway, breathless. He'd heard the chair, the dropped something, the tone. What happened? He asked, eyes jumping from Maya to Emily to the bracelet. Maya's chin wobbled. I broke it, she said. The shiny, sad bracelet. I'm sorry, Daddy. I forgot the rule. Elijah's stomach clenched. Oh, God, he murmured. Emily, I should have watched her more closely. We'll pay for it. I mean, I can't really afford, but we'll find a way. I'm so sorry. Emily didn't look at him. She picked up the bracelet gently, like lifting a fractured bone. The broken stone lay in her palm, a tiny, accusing eye. That was the last thing my father gave me, she whispered. He put it on my wrist the day before he went into the hospital. Her voice wavered, then steadied. And now it's broken. Maya started to cry silently, big tears rolling down her cheeks. I didn't mean to, she repeated. I didn't mean to. Elijah put a hand on her shoulder, guilt burning through him. I'll fix this, he said to Emily. Somehow, for the first time, she looked at him. Her eyes weren't angry so much as empty, tired. Maybe this was a mistake, she said quietly. Having you here, all of this. Maybe it was always going to end like this. The words landed like a verdict. Elijah felt something in his chest curl inward. I'll get our things, he said. Daddy, Maya sobbed. Come on, baby, he whispered. We'll talk later. He walked her out of the room, their footsteps muted. Behind them, Emily stood alone with the broken bracelet in her hand, the rain drawing streaks down the window pane like thin, transparent scars. A few days passed with more silence than words. Elijah still did his duties, but mechanically. He avoided Emily when he could, kept his answers short when he couldn't. The easy banter that had started to form between them evaporated. He'd seen this slow closing of doors before, at jobs, in neighborhoods, in faces that stopped meeting his halfway. Maya, usually a whirlwind, moved like a shadow. She stayed close to Margaret, but even their games were quieter. One evening, as the sky dimmed into a purple gray, Elijah stood in the kitchen staring at his reflection in the dark window. "This was stupid," he muttered under his breath, "thinking we could belong here, thinking I could ever be anything other than the help." He pulled his phone from his pocket, thumb hovering over a job listings app. Maybe there was another diner, another warehouse, something, anything. In the next room, he heard Emily's voice, muted but tense, on another work call. Numbers, risks, markets, decisions, different worlds, same roof. He exhaled, long and slow. The next morning, he made his decision. "I'm quitting," Elijah said. The words hung in the foyer between the framed paintings and the expensive rug and the staircase that led up to all the rooms he'd learned by heart and no longer felt he had any right to. Emily stood halfway down the stairs, one hand on the polished railing. She wore a simple black dress, hair still damp from the shower. She looked like she hadn't slept much. "Is that what you want?" she asked. He shrugged, a gesture that cost more than he would ever admit. "I don't know what I want," he said. "But I know what I can't do. I can't stay here feeling like we're one mistake away from being thrown out. I can't watch my daughter blame herself for something that was my responsibility." He looked up at her. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said, "and I'm not trying to guilt you. You had every right to be upset. That bracelet..." He swallowed. "I get it. I really do." Emily's fingers tightened on the railing. "I said things I shouldn't have," she murmured. "Maybe," he replied. "But I've heard enough versions of those words to know how the story ends. People like me, we don't get second chances in houses like this." The honesty in his voice stung. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key ring. "Here," he said. "Garage, side door, security system. Thank you for the opportunity, and for giving Maya a little bit of magic while it lasted." She stared at the keys, then at him. "If this is what you want," she said, her voice held together by something fragile, "I understand." He nodded once and turned toward the door. Maya appeared at the top of the stairs, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Her face crumpled. "We're leaving?" she whispered. "Yeah, baby," Elijah said. "We have to." She ran down the stairs and crashed into him, hugging his waist. "I'm sorry about the bracelet," she sobbed. "I ruined everything." He knelt and cupped her face. "No," he said firmly. "You didn't ruin anything. You made a mistake. Adults do that too. This isn't all on you, okay?" She sniffled. "But Ms. Emily..." "She's hurting," he said softly. "Sometimes when people are hurting, they grab the closest thing and blame it. Like a broken bracelet, or a little girl, or a man who doesn't look like he belongs in their house." He half smiled, the expression very tired. "But that doesn't mean it's your fault." He stood and took her hand. "Let's go home." They didn't get far. They made it as far as the mailbox at the end of the driveway, the real one Maya had pointed at the first day, saying, "Our future house will have one like this." Maya tugged his hand. "Wait," she said, "I forgot something." She let go and ran back toward the house. "Maya!" Elijah called. "Hey!" But she was already pounding on the front door. Emily opened it, startled. "Maya," she said, "what are you—" The little girl's face was blotchy from crying, eyes big and red. In her small hand, she held something looped and colorful. "I made you this," she blurted. "For your bracelet. I mean, not your real bracelet. That one is special, and I broke it, and I know I can't fix it. But I made you a new one. It's not shiny or expensive, but it's from me." She held up the bracelet. Bright blue beads, a few green ones, one heart-shaped pink bead that didn't quite fit. Emily stared. "I worked really hard," Maya continued, words tumbling over each other. "I tried to make it as blue as possible because you said you like blue. I know it's not the same, but I wanted you to have something so you don't feel empty, where the other one used to be. Her lower lip trembled. I'm really, really sorry, she whispered. Please don't hate my dad. He's the best dad ever. For a moment, all Emily could see was the broken silver bracelet, the empty space in the jewelry box. The last night in the hospital, her father's hand on her hair, his voice telling her she was strong, that she'd be okay, that the bracelet would keep him close. She'd believed him. Then he died anyway, and the bracelet had become the last anchor to a ship that had already sunk. When Maya broke it, it hadn't just been metal and stone. It had been a repetition, a second, smaller loss layered over the first. Now, in the doorway of her too-big house, with rain starting to fall again, a little girl was holding out something crooked and colorful and honest. Emily's throat closed. She reached out slowly and took the bracelet. Her fingers shook. You made this? She asked. Maya nodded. All by myself. Well, the string part was hard, but I didn't ask Daddy to help. It's really for you. If you don't want it, it's okay. I can keep it. But then it'll be like I stole your sorry present, and that feels wrong. Emotion hit Emily like a wave she'd been holding back for years. It was the last thing my father gave me, she said, her voice catching. That silver bracelet. I was so scared that if I lost it, it would be like losing him again, like I'd failed to hold on tight enough. Tears spilled over, hot and unstoppable. But the truth is, I lost him long before the bracelet broke. I just never wanted to say it out loud. Maya shifted her weight, unsure. I never met my mom, she offered quietly. But I have my dad. And he doesn't have bracelets or castles or anything. Just pancakes and hugs and bad singing. Maybe it's not about the bracelet? Emily let out a shaky, tearful laugh. Maybe it's not, she agreed. She slipped the plastic bracelet onto her wrist. It was slightly too small. The beads pressed into her skin. It looked utterly ridiculous against her elegant black dress. It also felt warm. I love it, she said. Maya's face lit up. You do? I do, Emily repeated. She looked past her to where Elijah stood at the end of the driveway, watching, unsure whether to come closer or turn away. Can you ask your dad to come back here for a minute? She said softly. Maya nodded like she'd just been given a secret mission. Daddy! She yelled. Miss Emily needs to talk to you. It's important. Elijah hesitated, then walked back up the driveway, each step measured. You forget something? He asked, half joking, half defensive as he reached the door. Yeah, Emily said. Her eyes were still wet, but clearer now. I forgot to apologize properly. He blinked. I shouldn't have said what I said, she told him. You and Maya did what kids and fathers do. You touched something fragile. You made a mistake. And I reacted like that bracelet was more important than people standing right in front of me. It meant a lot to you, he replied. It did, she nodded. It still does, but I realized something when she gave me this. She held up her wrist. Elijah stared at the cheap plastic beads, then at her. I've been clinging to the past so hard, I haven't left any room for anything new, she said. For new memories, new people, a new kind of family. Her voice softened. I don't want you to leave, she said. Either of you. This house felt like a museum before you came. Now it feels like it might actually be a home. I need that. I think my mother needs that, and... She swallowed. And I need you. The last sentence hung between them, fragile but true. Elijah took a slow breath. I've spent my whole life being told I don't belong in houses like this, he said. In neighborhoods like this. In rooms like these. People smile, but it never quite reaches their eyes. Not really. He looked at her straight on. And then you came along, offering a job, and I thought, maybe it's just business. Maybe that's all it is. But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like just work. His gaze flicked to Maya, then back to Emily. And that's what scares me. I'm scared too, Emily admitted. I've spent so long keeping everything under control, keeping my world neat and clean and predictable, but predictable also means lonely. She stepped closer. What if we try being scared together? She asked. What if we figure it out, one day at a time? Maya tensed with excitement between them, looking from one adult to the other like watching her favorite show live. Elijah exhaled. Okay, he said quietly. We can try. The first drops of rain began to fall again, dotting the stone steps. Margaret watched from the window, smiling. The party wasn't grand. It wasn't meant to be. Just a small group gathered in the once intimidating, now warm living room of Weston Estate. Margaret in her favorite armchair. A couple of close friends Emily trusted. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic bread Elijah had made himself. Maya's handmade decorations hanging slightly crooked from the ceiling. Paper stars and lopsided hearts. Outside, the Seattle evening was cold and damp. Inside, everything glowed. Maya spun in a new dress, giggling as her skirt fanned out. "Do I look fancy?" she asked. "You look like magic," Elijah said. Emily stood by the window, watching raindrops race each other down the glass. On her left wrist, the silver bracelet rested, repaired, the stone reset carefully by a jeweler. On her right wrist, the plastic bead bracelet sat proudly, colors bright and unapologetic. 2 stories, one past, one present. She felt a presence behind her. "Penny for your thoughts?" Elijah asked. She turned, smiling softly. "I was thinking," she said, "that my father would have liked you." Elijah chuckled. "You don't even know that." "I do," she insisted. "He loved people who showed up when it was hard, who stayed when things were messy, who didn't run from storms." He looked toward the window. "I almost drove past that night," he admitted. "Part of me still thinks I'm crazy for not doing it." "Do you regret stopping?" she asked. He met her eyes. Not for a second. Music played softly in the background. Someone laughed in the dining room. Margaret's voice floated in from the hallway, arguing with Maya about how many cookies was too many. Elijah cleared his throat. His hand brushed the little plastic bracelet on her wrist. "You know," he began, "I've been trying to figure out how a guy like me is supposed to do this. To stand in a house like this with a woman like you and ask for more." She raised an eyebrow. "More what?" "More everything," he said simply. He turned around and right there in the middle of the living room sank down on one knee. Conversation in the next room faded as people turned, noticing. Maya gasped so loudly it could have been scripted. Elijah didn't pull out a velvet box. Instead, he held up his empty hand, palm open, as if offering something invisible but very real. "Emily Weston," he said, voice steady but thick with emotion. "I don't have much to give you. No trust fund, no fancy car, no perfect past." He glanced at Maya, then back. "But I have a daughter who thinks you hung the moon. I have 2 hands that are very good at burning pancakes and fixing leaky faucets. I have a heart that, somehow, without me noticing, started beating for this house, for your mother, for you." He swallowed. "I don't have much to give you," he repeated softly, "but I can promise you this. I will never walk away from you again, not from you." He looked at Maya. "Not from you." He took a breath. "Emily, will you marry me?" The room held its breath. Emily's eyes filled instantly. She covered her mouth with one hand, fingers brushing both bracelets on her wrists. "And Maya," Elijah added, turning to his daughter, "will you let me share my heart with both of you, for as long as I live?" Maya practically exploded. "Yes!" she shouted, jumping up and down. "Yes, yes, yes! You have to say yes, Ms. Emily, you have to! Please!" Everyone laughed, the tension melting into warmth. Emily lowered her hand slowly. "You know," she said, wiping at a tear with the back of her wrist, "my father once told me that love isn't about perfect timing or perfect people, it's about who shows up in the rain." She stepped closer. "You showed up," she whispered. "Again and again, even when it cost you." She took his face in her hands. "Yes, Elijah," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." The room erupted in applause. Maya threw herself at them, wrapping her arms around both their necks in a tangled hug. "You're stuck with us now," she giggled. Elijah laughed, tears in his eyes. "Best trap I ever walked into," he said. Later, when the noise had settled into soft conversation and clinking cups, when Margaret had fallen asleep in her chair with a blanket over her knees, Elijah stepped outside for a moment. The rain had slowed to a fine mist. The lights from inside spilled out onto the wet driveway. The oak tree stood silhouetted against the cloudy sky. Emily joined him, slipping her hand into his. The plastic beads on her wrist clicked softly as they moved. "Cold?" he asked. "A little," she said. He wrapped an arm around her. "Do you ever think," she mused, "about how different things would be if you'd just driven past that night?" "All the time," he replied. "And?" He looked back at the glowing windows, at the shadow of a little girl twirling in the living room, at the outline of an old woman shifting in her sleep, at the faint reflection of himself in the glass, a man who no longer stood on the outside looking in. "And then I stop," he said. because I like this version better. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Inside, Maya taped another drawing to the fridge. This time, a big house, an oak tree, and 3 stick figures holding hands. That winter in Seattle, Elijah said quietly, half to himself, half to her. I lost a job, broke a bracelet, and drove into a storm. He kissed the top of her head. And somehow in the middle of all that, I found my home. If this story touched something in you, a memory, a regret, a quiet hope, imagine what you would say to Elijah, Emily, or little Maya if you could sit with them in that warm living room while the rain fell outside. You can leave that message in your own way wherever you are. Sometimes, that's all a heart needs to feel a little less alone.